The knock at the door was sharp, cutting through the stillness of the house like a blade. Alex barely glanced up from his book, assuming it was a package left too late or a neighbor needing something trivial. But as he swung the door open, the sight before him sent a flicker of unease through his chest. Victor, hands shoved deep into the pockets of his hoodie, his broad shoulders slightly hunched against the evening chill, eyes shadowed beneath the dim porch light. There was something unsettled about him, something that didn't belong to the confident young man Alex had known for years. "You know Justin isn't here, right?" Alex asked, keeping his voice even, though a curious tension coiled in his gut. Victor gave a small, almost sheepish smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, I know." He exhaled, shifting on his feet. "I just needed somewhere to be for a while." A beat of silence stretched between them, thick and charged. Alex should have turned him away, should have questioned why he was standing here alone. Instead, he stepped aside, letting Victor in, unaware that with that single gesture, something irreversible had just begun. Alex led Victor into the house, the warmth of the space contrasting against the crisp evening air outside. The door clicked shut behind them, sealing them in together, the silence between them stretching into something almost palpable. Alex had known Victor for years, watched him grow from an awkward teenager into the confident, sharp-witted man standing before him now. But tonight, something felt different. Victor lingered near the kitchen doorway, his fingers drumming lightly against the countertop, his usual easy charm muted beneath something heavier. His jaw was tense, his expression unreadable as his gaze flickered around the room, never quite settling. "You want something to drink?" Alex asked, needing to break the quiet. Victor nodded absently. "Yeah, sure." Alex poured 2 glasses of water, watching as Victor leaned against the counter, shoulders still taut. When he slid one glass toward him, their fingers brushed, a fleeting, insignificant touch, but one that sent a jolt of awareness through Alex's body. "You staying long?" Alex asked, voice more casual than he felt. Victor smirked, but there was an edge to it. "Depends. Am I overstaying my welcome?" Alex let out a short breath of laughter. "You know you're always welcome here." But as Victor took a sip, eyes locking onto Alex's with a quiet intensity, Alex felt a shift, a slow, burning recognition that whatever had brought Victor here tonight, it was about more than just needing a place to be. Alex leaned against the counter, swirling the water in his glass as he observed Victor in the dim glow of the kitchen lights. There was something uncharacteristically hesitant about the younger man tonight, a restlessness simmering beneath his usually composed exterior. It wasn't just the way his shoulders tensed or how he kept running a hand through his dark, slightly tousled hair. It was in the way he looked at Alex, like he was searching for something but wasn't quite sure what. "You ever feel like you don't really belong anywhere?" Victor asked suddenly, his voice quiet but carrying a weight that settled between them. The question caught Alex off guard. He studied Victor for a moment, noting the flicker of vulnerability in his gaze. "I think everyone feels that way at some point," Alex admitted, keeping his tone even. "What's got you feeling like that now?" Victor let out a dry chuckle, shaking his head as if frustrated with himself. "I don't know. Maybe I just feel stuck. Like I don't fit where I used to." Alex recognized the feeling well, that unsettling sense of transition. The in-between space where you're not who you were, but you're not yet who you're meant to be. He could hear it in Victor's voice, feel it in the charged silence that followed. "You don't have to figure it all out right now," Alex finally said, meeting his gaze. "No one ever really does." Victor exhaled, nodding slowly. "Yeah, maybe you're right." But something in his eyes told Alex there was more he wasn't saying. The living room was cast in the soft glow of a single lamp, bathing the space in warm amber tones. Victor lounged on the couch, his arm draped lazily over the backrest, fingers tracing mindless patterns into the fabric. Alex sat across from him, glass in hand, but he had barely taken a sip, his attention subtly, involuntarily, tethered to the young man before him. Victor exhaled deeply, eyes focused on nothing in particular. "Lately, I feel like I'm just drifting," he admitted, voice quieter now, as if saying it aloud made it more real. "Like I'm stuck between who I used to be and whatever comes next." Alex leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, considering him carefully. "That's normal," he said after a moment. "Change is disorienting. It forces you to re-examine everything, even parts of yourself you thought were set in stone." Victor's lips curved into a faint smirk, but there was no humor in it. Yeah, tell me about it. He rubbed his hands together absently, then turned his head to face Alex fully. But with you, it's different. I don't feel like I have to be anything specific. There's no pressure. It's just easy. Alex's stomach tightened at the words, simple yet layered with something heavier. Their gazes held, something unspoken humming beneath the surface, stretching between them like a live wire. For the first time that night, Alex felt something shift, and he wasn't sure he was ready for it. The room was quiet, save for the low hum of the television. Neither of them were truly watching it anymore. Alex could feel the warmth radiating from Victor beside him, the subtle press of his leg under the shared blanket. An accidental touch that neither of them had acknowledged, but neither had moved away from. It was small, insignificant to an outsider, but in the charged silence between them, it felt like a fuse waiting to be lit. Victor shifted slightly, adjusting his seat, and for the briefest moment, their hands brushed against each other. The contact was fleeting, barely a whisper of skin on skin, but it sent a pulse through Alex's veins, a jolt of awareness that settled deep in his chest. His fingers curled slightly against his thigh. Have you ever wanted something you knew you shouldn't? Alex swallowed, heart thudding in his chest. The weight of the question, the way Victor said it, it wasn't idle curiosity. It was something deeper, something dangerous. He forced a breath, keeping his voice steady. That's a dangerous question. Victor chuckled softly, though there was no humor in it. Yeah, he admitted, gaze locked on Alex's. I guess it is. And in that moment, Alex knew. This was no longer just a passing thought. It was real, and neither of them could ignore it anymore. Alex knew he should walk away. The rational part of his mind screamed at him to break whatever spell had woven itself between them. But the moment Victor reached out and caught his wrist, all logic dissolved. The grip was firm but not demanding, an unspoken plea more than a forceful hold. The air between them felt thick, charged with something undeniable. Something neither of them had the courage to name out loud. I've felt something for a long time, Victor murmured, his thumb tracing lightly against Alex's pulse point. And I don't think I can keep pretending. Alex's breath hitched. You should shut this down. He had to shut this down. But when he looked into Victor's eyes, dark and searching, he saw no hesitation. No fear. Just need. Victor took a step closer, his fingers sliding up Alex's arm, slow, deliberate, testing the boundaries of a decision neither of them had fully made. Alex could feel the warmth of him now, the faint scent of his cologne, the steady rise and fall of his chest. His own pulse was a wild drumbeat against his ribs, betraying everything he wanted to deny. Tell me I'm wrong, Victor whispered. Alex opened his mouth, but nothing came out, because he couldn't say it. He couldn't tell him to stop. The tension finally snapped. Victor's lips barely brushed as at first, a question more than a declaration. But when Alex didn't pull away, Victor kissed him deeper, and suddenly, there was no turning back. Alex's mind screamed at him to stop, to push Victor away, to regain the distance that had always been their unspoken boundary. But his body, the part of him that had long ignored this slow, smoldering attraction, betrayed him completely. Victor's hands were firm but reverent, fingers sliding over his waist as if memorizing the shape of him. Alex shuddered under the careful touch, his pulse hammering, his breath ragged. Victor's mouth moved against his in a way that felt almost desperate, like he'd been waiting for this, holding it in for far too long. When Alex backed into the couch, Victor followed, pressing him down into the cushions, the weight of his body solid, inescapable. It wasn't rushed, nor was it hesitant. It was inevitable. Are you sure? Alex barely recognized his own voice. Hushed and hoarse between gasps, Victor exhaled, his forehead resting against Alex's. I've never been more sure of anything. His fingers tangled in the hem of Alex's shirt. And when Alex nodded, silent permission, Victor pulled it over his head, exposing fevered skin beneath. Their bodies fit together effortlessly, like they had been meant to all along. Heat pooled low in Alex's stomach as Victor's lips traced along his jaw, down his neck, over his collarbone. Each kiss leaving a burning imprint that Alex knew he would remember long after this night ended. There was no more hesitation, no more boundaries. Just need, raw and unfiltered, consuming them both. The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a golden glow across the room, illuminating the mess of discarded clothes and tangled sheets. Alex stirred, blinking against the brightness, his body still heavy with the exhaustion of the night before. His muscles ached, but it wasn't discomfort. It was a lingering reminder of everything that had happened, everything they had given into. Beside him, Victor lay still, the slow rise and fall of his chest almost hypnotic. Peaceful, vulnerable. It was a stark contrast to the heated passion of the night before. Alex let his gaze wander, taking in the faint marks on Victor's skin, the way his lips were still slightly parted. As if he were still chasing a dream he didn't want to wake from. A rush of emotion, something Alex wasn't ready to name, twisted in his chest. He should get up, should put some distance between them before reality came crashing down, but he couldn't bring himself to move. Not yet. Victor shifted then, lashes fluttering as he turned toward Alex. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world outside the room didn't exist. No expectations, no consequences, just this moment. Morning, Victor murmured, voice rough from sleep. Alex swallowed, searching for the right words. Did he regret it? The answer came as naturally as breathing. No. Morning, he whispered back. Victor reached out, fingertips tracing the edge of Alex's jaw soft. Unhurried. So now what? And Alex knew nothing would ever be the same again. The weight of what they had become sat between them, unspoken yet impossible to ignore. It had been weeks since that night, since the morning after that had left Alex reeling. He had tried to convince himself that it was a lapse in judgment, something that should have never happened. But the truth was it hadn't been a mistake at all. Every stolen glance, every brush of fingers, every time Victor found an excuse to be near him, it was impossible to deny what they both knew. Tonight, it was different. Victor stood in Alex's living room, eyes shadowed with uncertainty but filled with something deeper. I don't want to keep pretending, he said, his voice raw. I know it's complicated. I know what it means. But I don't care. Alex's breath caught. He had spent so much time fighting this, burying his emotions beneath logic and restraint. But as Victor stepped closer, his warmth erasing the space between them, Alex felt something else, relief. Victor's hand found his. Fingers threading together in silent defiance of everything that told them this couldn't happen. Tell me you don't feel it, Victor whispered. Alex exhaled, his defenses unraveling, his grip tightening around Victor's. I do, he admitted, the truth heavier than any denial. Victor smiled then, slow, knowing. Then take a chance on me. And as Alex pulled him in, crushing their lips together in a kiss that spoke of every unspoken word, every forbidden desire, every possibility, he knew. This was a risk worth taking. The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft golden streaks across the room. Alex stirred first, the warmth of Victor's body still pressed against his. The steady rise and fall of his breath, a quiet reassurance that this was real. He turned slightly, watching as Victor blinked awake, his dark eyes still heavy with sleep. For a moment, neither of them spoke, but the silence wasn't uncertain anymore. It was something safe, something steady. Victor stretched lazily, a slow grin tugging at his lips as he reached for Alex, his fingers tracing absent-minded circles against his skin. Morning, he murmured, voice still husky from sleep. Alex swallowed, his heart clenching at how natural this felt. Morning, he echoed. Victor studied him for a long moment before whispering, no regrets. Alex exhaled, letting his hand drift over Victor's chest, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath his fingertips. None. He admitted, because this wasn't a mistake. It was something he wanted. Victor grinned, pulling him closer, pressing a lingering kiss to his temple. Then let's see where this takes us. And just like that, Alex knew this was only the beginning.